The paradox of deep thinking: why intelligence can lead to isolation. Have you ever felt that the more you think deeply, the more isolated you become? That the more you understand, the less people seem to listen? This isn't just in your head. Society has always feared deep thinkers, not because they are wrong, but because they see what others don't want to. This is a pattern woven throughout history, from the persecution of Socrates to the public ridicule of Tesla. These brilliant minds weren't silenced because they lacked intelligence, they were silenced because they made people uncomfortable. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, known for his brutal honesty, believed that intelligence itself was a curse, one that isolates those who see the world too clearly. But why does this happen? Why does society resist those who think differently? The answer lies deep within human psychology. The mirror effect and the threat to ego. When we encounter someone who is physically strong, we often admire their strength. When we meet someone who is wealthy, we might feel envy. These qualities, strength, wealth, beauty, are external. We recognize them, but they don't necessarily challenge our core self-perception. However, intelligence operates differently. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just introduce new ideas, they reflect back the limitations of those around them. This is where the discomfort begins. Unlike physical strength or material wealth, intelligence is deeply tied to our identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, our beliefs, and our understanding of the world. When we meet someone who thinks on a deeper level, someone who questions what we take for granted, it can feel like a direct attack on our sense of self. Instead of admiring intelligence, many people subconsciously resist it. The mere presence of a deep thinker forces others to confront their own limitations, and human beings will do almost anything to protect their ego from discomfort. This is why deep thinkers have historically been pushed to the fringes of society. Their insights don't just challenge ideas, they challenge egos. The brain's primitive response to intelligence. Modern neuroscience provides a biological basis for this phenomenon. Studies show that when people feel intellectually inferior, their brain's amygdala, the region responsible for fear and threat detection, becomes highly active. In simple terms, deep thinking doesn't just intimidate, it triggers a primal survival response similar to what we feel when facing danger. But why would intelligence activate the same fear circuits as a physical threat? The answer lies in how our brains evolved. For most of human history, survival depended not on being the smartest person in the room, but on being accepted by the group. Our ancestors thrived in tribes where social harmony meant safety, being rejected could mean death. This is why human brains are wired for social acceptance over intellectual pursuit. When a highly intelligent person enters a social setting, they unknowingly disrupt this tribal balance. Their presence challenges existing ideas, social norms, and group dynamics. This triggers the brain's defense mechanism, as if it's facing a potential enemy rather than just a deeper thinker. This is why many deep thinkers feel isolated, not because they lack social skills, but because their intelligence makes them stand out in a world that values fitting in over standing out. How cognitive biases and modern technology amplify rejection. The resistance to deep thinking is further explained by several cognitive biases. The Dunning-Kruger effect: people with low ability often overestimate their intelligence, while highly intelligent people tend to doubt themselves. This creates friction, as those who know little often believe they know more than they do and dismiss deeper thinkers as a result. The status quo bias: the human brain prefers familiar ideas over new, complex truths. Intelligence often introduces disruptive thoughts, which makes people uncomfortable. The backfire effect: when people are confronted with information that contradicts their beliefs, they don't change their minds, they double down on their existing views. Deep thinkers often face this reaction when they introduce challenging ideas. In the digital age, social media has amplified this rejection of intelligence. Algorithms prioritize engagement over depth, meaning that controversial, emotionally charged content spreads faster than thoughtful, well-reasoned arguments. The more intellectual someone is, the harder it is for them to compress deep ideas into viral, bite-sized content. As a result, society increasingly favors entertainment over enlightenment, making it even more challenging for deep thinkers to find widespread acceptance. Navigating a world that resists depth. If you've ever felt misunderstood for thinking deeply, you are in good company. Throughout history, some of the most brilliant minds, Socrates, Galileo, Nietzsche, and Turing, were not celebrated during their lifetimes. They were ridiculed, persecuted, or ignored. Their ideas were seen as dangerous, disruptive, or simply too difficult for society to accept at the time. Society doesn't fear intelligence itself, it fears what intelligence represents: change. It only celebrates these qualities in hindsight, once they are safe and widely accepted. But this doesn't mean deep thinkers are doomed to loneliness. It just means you need to understand how to navigate society wisely. Embrace solitude. The greatest thinkers in history often saw solitude not as a punishment but as a privilege, using their alone time for intellectual and creative pursuits. Seek out your tribe. You don't need millions of people to understand you, just the right ones. Seek out like-minded individuals, whether in books, online communities, or intellectual circles. Communicate your ideas wisely. Learn to communicate your depth without overwhelming others. Einstein famously said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Schopenhauer believed that while intelligence may lead to loneliness, it also grants freedom, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of life. It is a double-edged sword, a source of both power and pain. But in the end, it is deep thinkers who push humanity forward, even if society doesn't always know how to embrace them. If you've ever faced rejection for thinking deeply, what has been your experience? How have you learned to navigate it? The psychological and social costs of being a deep thinker. The feeling of isolation that comes with deep thinking isn't just an anecdotal experience, it's a phenomenon with a profound psychological and social impact. This feeling of being an outsider isn't a flaw in the deep thinker, it's a reflection of a society that, by its very nature, struggles to accommodate a different kind of mind. The deep thinker often operates in a state of cognitive dissonance with the world around them. While others find comfort in established narratives and simple solutions, the deep thinker sees the layers of complexity, the inconsistencies, and the unasked questions. This constant state of questioning can be a lonely place. It's like being the only one in a room who can hear a high-pitched frequency that no one else can. It's not that others are wrong, but their reality is fundamentally different from yours. This creates a vicious cycle. The more a deep thinker delves into complex ideas, the more they find a lack of genuine intellectual exchange in their everyday lives. They might try to share their insights, only to be met with blank stares or a quick change of topic. This isn't necessarily out of malice, it's often a defense mechanism. For many, a conversation that moves beyond the surface level is mentally taxing and can trigger feelings of inadequacy, a primal response tied to the mirror effect we discussed earlier. Over time, this repeated social rejection can lead to a sense of learned helplessness in social situations. The deep thinker learns that their thoughts are not welcome or understood, so they stop trying to share them. This retreat into oneself, while protecting the ego from further rejection, only deepens the sense of isolation. They become intellectually rich but socially impoverished, not by choice, but by circumstance. The unseen burden, the mind as a double-edged sword. Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy offers a powerful lens through which to understand this burden. He saw intelligence not just as a gift, but as a curse that burdened its possessor with a heightened sense of awareness. Schopenhauer believed that while most people are guided by the will to live, a blind, irrational force that drives them toward pleasure and survival, the highly intelligent are driven by the will to truth. This creates a fundamental disconnect. Where the majority seeks comfort and avoids difficult truths, the deep thinker seeks truth even if it leads to pain and isolation. They see through the lies and deceptions that make up most social interactions, making it difficult to participate in small talk, status games, and polite dishonesty. The deep thinker craves meaningful discussion, while society favors simplicity. Schopenhauer's philosophy confirms a painful truth. Happiness and intelligence are often inversely related. He argued that ignorance, not wisdom, was the true key to happiness, as it allows one to live without the crushing weight of understanding the world's flaws. This explains why deep thinkers throughout history, from Nietzsche and Pascal to Kafka, often struggled with depression and existential crises. Their heightened awareness is a double-edged sword. While it allows them to see reality more clearly, it also distances them from those who prefer comforting illusions. The path forward, embracing a different kind of success. So, what does this mean for the deep thinker? It means understanding that your value is not determined by society's approval. The path forward is not about changing who you are to fit in, but about finding a way to thrive despite the social friction. Embrace solitude as a privilege, view your alone time not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for intellectual and creative pursuits. It is in this solitude that the greatest ideas are born. Find your tribe. The most crucial step is to seek out like-minded individuals. Whether through books, online communities, or intellectual circles, finding people who share your depth of thought can be a life-changing experience. You don't need a million people to understand you, just a few who truly do. Choose your battles. You don't have to share your deepest insights with everyone. Not every place or person is ready for a profound conversation. Learn to discern when to share your thoughts and when to simply observe. As Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Learn to communicate your depth without overwhelming others. The rejection of deep thinking is not just social, it is biological, psychological, and cultural. It's a force built into human nature, reinforced by group dynamics and magnified by modern technology. But this doesn't mean deep thinkers are doomed. It means they have a unique opportunity to find a different kind of success, one measured not by social acceptance, but by the richness of their inner world and the profound insights they bring to humanity. If you have ever felt like an outsider for your thoughts, know this: you are not alone. And while society may fear deep thinkers, it is deep thinkers who have always pushed humanity forward. To be a deep thinker in a superficial world is both a blessing and a burden. It's a quiet revolution of the mind, a relentless journey through layers of thought that few are willing or equipped to explore. While others are content with the surface, you dive into the depths. And for that, you often pay a price: misunderstanding, isolation, and at times, loneliness. But make no mistake, this isolation is not a sign of weakness. It is often the inevitable result of clarity in a world that thrives on illusions. From Socrates to Schopenhauer, from Nietzsche to Turing, history has proven one unchanging truth: the deeper your insight, the greater the distance between you and the crowd. Intelligence, true, piercing, unflinching intelligence, rarely receives applause in its own time. It questions too much. It sees too clearly. It threatens the fragile constructs that hold the majority together. And so, the deep thinker is often pushed to the fringes. Not because they are wrong, but because they are early. Too early. Yet, this exile carries within it a paradoxical kind of freedom. When society no longer defines your worth, you begin to define it for yourself. When your insights fall on deaf ears, you learn to listen more closely to your own inner voice. When the world rejects your depth, you stop begging for its approval. And in that silence, in that solitude, you discover a higher form of wisdom, one that does not need to be validated to be real. The inner fortress. A deep thinker learns, often the hard way, that emotional independence is essential. The world may not applaud your observations, but it cannot take away your clarity. The world may mock your solitude, but it cannot diminish your strength. Every rejection, every blank stare, every shallow dismissal builds within you an inner fortress, quiet, unshakable, sovereign. You begin to understand something that Schopenhauer hinted at, that happiness and truth are often strangers. But dignity and truth? They are companions. You might not always be happy as a deep thinker, but you will be real. You will be awake. And in a world addicted to comfort and illusion, that is a radical act of courage. Intellectual integrity over social approval. The mind of a deep thinker is not merely a tool for processing data, it's a lens that filters reality through layers of nuance, contradiction, and meaning. This kind of mind doesn't just ask, what? It asks, why, and then keeps digging, even when the answers are uncomfortable. But the cost of this intellectual integrity is social friction. In a culture that rewards brevity and punishes complexity, a thoughtful mind becomes a threat. A person who sees too much is often told they think too much. Yet that is precisely their gift, they refuse to stop where others conveniently settle. You must learn not to water yourself down for the comfort of others. Your mind is not a burden, it is a tool of transformation. And though it may alienate you from the herd, it connects you with something far more powerful: truth, creativity, and authentic self-awareness. The role of solitude. Solitude is often misunderstood as loneliness, especially in a society that confuses noise with connection. But for the deep thinker, solitude is sanctuary. It is in the silence, away from the distractions, away from the performative conversations, away from the intellectual fast food of social media, that real thought emerges. Thinkers like Nietzsche, Pascal, and Kafka found their greatest insights not in crowds but in quiet rooms. Solitude, far from being a punishment, was their crucible of clarity. You must learn to see your time alone not as a failure to fit in, but as an opportunity to refine your mind and build your inner world. After all, some of the most powerful revolutions start within. You don't need everyone, just the right ones. One of the most liberating realizations a deep thinker can come to is this: you don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be understood by the right ones. True connection isn't found in quantity, it's found in quality. Seek out those who crave depth like you do, those rare souls who don't flinch at difficult questions, who don't fear silence, who don't hide behind shallow smiles. They exist. And when you find them, something remarkable happens: you no longer feel crazy. You no longer feel alone. You feel seen. This is your tribe, not defined by location, age, or popularity, but by alignment of thought and depth of spirit. Even if it's just a handful of people, those few can be your anchor in a world that feels adrift in superficiality. Learn the art of strategic expression. Not every truth needs to be spoken in every room. The deep thinker must learn a vital skill: strategic silence. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Understanding when to speak and when to observe is part of your evolution. The truth, after all, is not diminished by being withheld, it is merely protected. This doesn't mean you compromise your integrity. It means you choose your moments with care. Some minds are not ready for your thoughts, and that's not your fault. It's not your job to force insight upon the unwilling. It's your job to cultivate your depth and share it where it can flourish, not where it will be trampled. From isolation to leadership. What begins as isolation can become influence. What starts as rejection can become a revolution. The very qualities that once made you feel like an outsider, your insight, your honesty, your refusal to accept mediocrity, can become the foundation of leadership. History has shown us that deep thinkers are the ones who shape the future, not the ones who simply conform to the present. While society may resist you now, it is the ideas you plant, quietly, patiently, that will take root in generations to come. You are not here to be liked. You are here to see, to know, to elevate the conversation. That is your burden, and your blessing. The final truth. Being a deep thinker in today's world is not easy. But it is meaningful. It is a path that demands courage, but it offers something far more valuable than approval: truth, clarity, purpose. If you've ever felt like you're carrying a weight that others don't see, you are. But it's a noble weight. The weight of vision. The burden of awareness. And with it comes a quiet kind of power, the power to question, to reshape, and ultimately, to lead. So, embrace your mind, not just as a gift, but as a responsibility. The world may not understand you, but it needs you. More than ever. And if the road gets lonely, remember this. You are not alone. You are just ahead of your time.